Just a note that this podcast may touch on difficult themes and include some challenging conversations, so please take care when listening. This is The Widow Diaries, a podcast that holds space for the often unspoken stories of grief, love and life after loss as a young widow. I'm Caroline Winter, and like so many, I've been on this journey. So come with me each episode and hear from others who've also walked the winding path of widowhood in their own way. The Widow Diaries, for First Light Widowed support, where no story is the same and every story matters. So I've been thinking back to the first few months after Richard died. That was after the shock had worn off, and as I started to feel a little human again. Because let's face it, you actually feel a bit like an alien in your own body. Everything looks like it once did, but nothing is. And I was reflecting on those moments where I would let myself grieve just a little bit more and then a little bit more again. You know, those times when I was a wreck on the floor or scaring drivers next to me at the traffic lights because I was howling in the car so hard. But also how I'd let myself go there, gently, and in return, let a little bit of light in. Because as my guest today says so eloquently, it's okay to feel it. It just means you had skin in the game. Josh Clayton is a shearer, a trainer, a mindset coach and a father from regional Australia who lost his partner Hayley to motor neurone disease in 2017 when their daughter Stella was just a toddler. Since then, Josh has dedicated his life to raising his daughter, educating himself and others about health and well-being and honouring the remarkable resilience Hayley showed during her illness. Josh, thank you so much for being on The Widow Diaries.
No worries. Thanks, Caroline. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Josh, take us back to life before Hayley's diagnosis. What was your relationship like, your family and your world? What was it all like then?
Yeah, I felt like I was sitting on top of the hill, to be honest, looking down. It was an amazing time of my life. I was living in young New South Wales. I had pretty much my dream job. Well, I'm a shearer, but it was just, in my opinion, I've travelled a lot with shearing all through Australasia, and it was the best place to shear, like financially and then also just professionally and for growth in my industry as well. And we had our own cafe as well. Hayley was in hospitality. She was a larger than life character. So she had a cafe, and we just recently built a house as well, probably 2 years before diagnosis. So, it takes a little while to get everything ready within the house as well, landscaping and things like that. So I felt like I'd finally grown up, to be honest.
Tell us, what was Hayley like? You said larger than life, but describe for us, who was Hayley?
Hayley was someone who had an infectious smile and a laugh, and wouldn't matter what kind of day you were having. If you went and seen her, or if you bumped into her in the street, like when I say seen her, if you've seen her like at the cafe or when she worked at the pub when I met her, like just straight away this big, huge smile. And she was very energetic as well. So, you just got caught up in her moment. You were just, when you were talking to her, you were in her little world. It felt like you sort of left the world behind. Well, that's how I felt. Anyway, but yeah, she was very loving, nurturing. She's very hardworking, and she was just heaps of fun. She was just very relaxed and chilled out with this amazing vibe.
Tell us about the moment things changed for you and the diagnosis that really did impact your world.
Yeah, so I remember the day pretty vividly actually, because there was a big event on the same day that we're watching in the waiting room. So it was the 26th of July 2016, and our little girl was only 13 months old, I think, at this stage. And we were down in Macquarie University, and yeah, we went into the room with Dr. Rowe. He's a leading MND doctor in Australia, I'm led to believe. And Hayley jumped up on the bench, and he doesn't say too much at the start, and then he done a few tests, and he goes, looks at me and goes, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a shearer." And he sort of looked back, and then he just goes, "I'm clinically concerned." And then it was just, well, Hayley knew, and I didn't really know as much about it as Hayley did with the history of her family. I guess. So out of the 5 siblings in her family, she was the third one to pass away from the disease.
Wow.
So she was very familiar with it.
Wow.
So...
And was MND something that you had spoken about previously, knowing that there was this family history?
Not a lot, no. No, I'd only ever seen Hayley sort of ever have one sort of breakdown moment with it, to be honest. She was just a fortitude of strength, really, through that. And she lost her mum and those couple of siblings as well. And then her aunties and uncles, there was 8 siblings in her mum's family and only one never got the gene.
Wow.
So... And then there's all the first cousins of Hayley's as well. But they'd lost a lot of people before I met Hayley, because I grew up near Bathurst. So I got down there in 2010. So I sort of missed that, if you will. And then one of her cousins got sick while I was there, and then his daughter, and then Hayley, and then her cousin, which was Justin Newbury, who was, the leading MND researcher as well. So it sort of all that happened. They all sort of got diagnosed within, 2 or 3 years, I think. Yeah. So it all sort of didn't know too much about it, and then you're right into it.
You become a bit of an expert in something you wish you never had to be, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. But to Hayley's credit, she just, just didn't even consider, the detriment of it. She just trying to find solutions all the time, and we went down a holistic path. So we did, there's no cure at all. There was options to go on a trial, a copper trial, and Hayley just said straight up, she goes, if I don't get the drug, I'm not going to do it. And they said, well, it's a placebo trial, and she said, well, I'm not interested. So we went over to Bali and we started doing these fasts and stuff like that. So she done a 21-day water fast over in Bali.
Wow.
Yeah. So you wean yourself onto the water. So you start sort of go vegetarian, and then into the salads, and then into juice, and then wean yourself onto the water. So 21-day water fast. And to my understanding, that was meant to be like a natural stem cell reproduction system. So you starve all the sicker cells, if you like, out of your body, and then when you reintroduce the juice and the nutrients and the leafy substance, like the green leafy salads and things like that. So that's supposed to just, support the healthy cells to come back into the body. And
so her approach, and clearly together, but your approach to her diagnosis and life after it was, I'm guessing, to, as you say, go down the holistic path, but make the best of a situation and just try and do whatever you could to keep her as healthy as you could for as long as possible.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So we were, you should eat and drink like your life depends on it, because it does, but we were really living that. We were in that. But yeah, she inspired so many people. Over 15 months, she was diagnosed to passing. And yeah, in that 15 months, she just changed so many people's lives, mine especially. But, just her courage and determination and how she approached it. I don't know how many people I know just stopped smoking or changed their diet or started training, exercise-wise, things like that, just by coming into contact with her and just seeing what she was going through and how she faced it. Just changed countless people's, approach to life just because of her approach.
I look forward to digging into that a bit more in terms of how that's, since set you up for this next chapter in your life. I did want to touch on MND itself, motor neuron disease. For anyone who doesn't know what it is, can you sort of explain it for us?
Yeah, so the neurons in the brain, and they shoot out to the muscle. So if everyone's sitting there, if you can just put your fingers out and you move your fingers as if you're waving to a child or something like that. So for your fingers to do that, your brain's sending, signals for your fingers to wave up and down, so to speak. And so when these neurons get weaker, you start to lose power and signal to the other parts of your body.
Right.
So, and then the cell gets a build up in it, and then the cell gets really weak. The neurons get really weak, and then they stop working. And once that connective pathway to your hand stops working, well, then it becomes paralysed. And there's a lot of different... So I think 90% of MND in Australia is sporadic and 10% can be genetic, but I'm led to believe there's only 2 families in Australia, one in Western Australia and one in New South Wales, which is Haley's family, that have this certain gene.
Wow.
It's very aggressive. So you can get it in your throat, which is like, I think they call that bowler, MND, and that's like in a matter of months. So Haley got hers in her toe. Started off, she just was walking up from the clothesline, up to the laundry, and like she couldn't keep a thong on or a sandal, and she didn't tell me this for a while till she was diagnosed, but that's how it started for her. And then her foot just stopped working, toes, her foot, and then her leg. Yeah, and it wasn't long. It was only about 6 or 7 months before she was in a wheelchair.
It's a terribly cruel and degenerative disease. I can't even imagine you as the love of your life, a father, everything that's going on and walking through this with her. Sounds like her strength was the thing that kept everyone going.
Yeah, and that was it. Like, and I do say this a little bit when I talk to the people about Haley, that, it wasn't our scenario, as hard as it was to have these conversations and, watch her, become, paralysed and, still, getting to the point where she can't even, wrap her arms around her daughter and things like that. But, at least we got to have those times and those conversations, and, she really set me up because I'm very non-materialistic. So, we just had this brand new house, so she made sure that we had all nice furniture in there and everything was, dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's while she could. And it wasn't the fact that, other people, if someone dies in a car accident or something like that, like they don't have that opportunity to, to have those hard conversations. But in that aspect, we were very lucky, I think. That's how I look at it, that we got to have that time together.
When Haley did die and as you say, an illness, what is coming. What was that like, that moment when she actually did leave? Because you can prepare and plan, but it's quite different when that reality sets in, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. It's still come a lot sooner than we believed as well.
Right.
So it did, but it was pretty shocking. It was sort of... it wasn't the way that we thought it was going to go. And, I guess it was shock. It was just hard to believe at the start. Yeah.
So after Haley died, you took some time off with your daughter. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So part of the plan, this is a verbal plan. We never had anything wrote down and put in a safe or anything like that, although if her hands were probably still working, she probably would do that for me because I'm a mad list writer. So she probably would have done that, but we didn't. It was just verbal. And so we agreed on 3 months, which is a long time because I love my work, I love my job, and it was definitely a lot of therapy for me as well. Just being able to go to work sometimes and be able to, escape that little bit for a little while. But so 3 months off. So, and that felt like a long time as well, but that's how that went. It was 3 months, and I was very lucky in the middle of that. Actually, I won a big shearing competition and won nearly $10,000. So that made that.
Oh wow.
So that was really good too. So we built a few pergolas and things like that. So I actually used that as a bit of therapy as well. I had some friends in construction, chippies and stuff. So they come put a pergola up, and I painted that over Christmas and stuff as well, because Haley passed away at the end of October. So by the time we got that up, it sort of gave me something to do. Yeah. Over Christmas as well. We called it Haley's Hut, so that was good. I could, immerse myself in there and and go through the motions that you go through in under there, which was pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like that 3 months obviously spent at home, you had Stella to look after, you were grieving yourself, but it sounds like you also found a bit of purpose in that time. Yeah.
I think, I guess I tried to just continue living as we did, like especially with the food, with the nutrition and things like that, and just living holistically because, I think any widow would know that, you know, you can feel them around you, like especially in those first few months, I think. Whether you're woo-woo or not, I don't think you got a choice. I think they're still there. Like it is what it is.
I agree.
You know, so, and I'm a pretty woo-woo person, so I'm very open to it. And yeah, there's a few crazy things that happen within the house, but yeah, so, you know, I got to go through, you know, the first stage of grieving at our house with Stella when she was young. And, you know, if you've got a child who's sort of, you know, 2.5, 3 years old, which she was when she passed, like it's a very fun age as well, you know, and she didn't really comprehend what had happened, you know.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So you're balancing off, you know, losing Hayley and trying to come to grips with that, but also being a dad of a toddler, which, as you say, is energetic and fun and fast. How did you balance that at that time?
Well, I'm pretty hyperactive sort of person anyway, so it was good. I sort of just fell into Stella's world, to be honest.
Nice.
Sort of, you know, I wasn't working, so I'd step back from that role, and obviously going through the, you know, well, it is a bit traumatizing, to be honest. Like it's, you know, to watch your, you know, one of the loves of your life, and, you know, go through that and be there by their side. It's, you know, it can put a fair callus on the heart. So it was good to sort of go into a bit of solidarity with Stella, I guess. We always had visitors and stuff, but to be able to fall into her world, I think, now I think about it, was probably, it was a funner way to go about it, I guess, you know, with the gift of Stella being so young. Yeah,
absolutely. I can imagine that would have just, I guess, brought some levity to life when there probably wasn't a lot of that right then.
Yeah, that's right. And there was definitely times where I had, you know, moments and breakdowns and stuff, but Stella was always there for me to give me a cuddle and that.
That's awesome. That is the, you know, the joy of absolutely having children, and when you are going through something like this, that they are there for those endless hugs.
Yeah, that's right. And she's processing it differently as she gets older. So she's 10 in about a month. So, you know, at that age she didn't really comprehend it. It was probably more just seeing me go through the motions. And then when she got to year 1, her teacher actually reached out and said, oh, you know, Stella's been getting upset for no reason in class, and she just sort of say that, you know, she's missing her mum.
Yeah. So as Stella has grown older and able to understand more, has that been you keeping Hayley's memory alive by being able to share the stories of her from, you know, the time that she wouldn't remember?
Yeah, definitely. We were lucky that we were in the time of, you know, these new smartphones and things like that. So, you know, we've got Hayley leave little voice messages, and the amount of photos and things like that we have. And, you know, and I always, you know, whenever she does something, and because they've both got that little sass factor, you know, very much. So, you know, I see a lot of her in Stella as well, a lot of Hayley and Stella. So, and I always remind her whenever I see it, I always remind her, I was like, oh, you're like your mum, or, you know, you got that from your mum, sort of thing. So I make sure that she knows that her mum's still inside there.
I just want to take us back to the grieving process. Now, I am curious around what that grieving looked like for you as a man, but also a man in regional Australia and in a sort of industry where, you know, it's quite blokey. To be fair.
Yeah, it is pretty masculine industry, and it's good, and it's very endocrinic driven. Like you can't work that hard, you know. And we have some amazing female shearers too. Don't get me wrong.
For sure.
It's a golden era at the moment for it, and Stella wants to be a shearer, so that's really exciting. But it's a very, you know, intense job. So, you know, you've got to bring out that, you know, the hormones and the endocrinic drive that keeps you going day in, day out. It's very competitive. So it is, but to be honest, and probably a lot of other widows of both genders will agree with me that I probably used distraction as well. Once I went back to work, I fell back into a pretty big distraction, and a few opportunities sort of fell into my lap, some things that we're working on before Hayley got sick as well. So I sort of just, as soon as I went back to work, it just was, the universe just had this obviously already pre-lined up, and I jumped pretty much straight back into training for competitive shearing, and I think that I just kept myself that distracted probably till about 2020. So 2018. So 2 years I probably distracted myself before I really found myself, well, this is how it went. I just found myself on the floor. It was in COVID, actually. I was living in WA at the time, but, I was just on the floor in the lounge room of the house that we were in, and I just sort of had a bit of a breakdown there and then and just let it all come out, really. It was a pretty surreal moment. It was out of my control, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you are right. There's many widows who would understand exactly what that's like, and there is nothing wrong with divert and distract for some time, but that grief, it surfaces and it finds you, and you kind of have to give into it. So at that point, how did you deal with that? How did you deal with that moment, and then what was to come after that?
Yeah, well, it was a very pivotal moment. But I might just say before I jump into that, if I can, Caroline, that I think if you let yourself feel a bit more every day, I feel like it doesn't build up on you to that moment as much. Sort of like a rubber band, if you like. So if you just stretch it out and distract, and then once you let it go, it hits you, but then the rubber band doesn't go back to where it was.
Good analogy.
Yeah, so I think don't be afraid to feel it, more frequent than distract it and then end up on a ball on the floor, which will probably happen at some point. But I've found that I let myself feel it a lot more rather than distract it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I'm just as you said that, I was sort of thinking back to my time when it's almost like you sort of opened the door ever so slightly and a tiny bit of light would come in, and then you'd close it again. And then open the door again and let a little bit more light in, maybe in a few days or a week's time.
That's right. Because when that little bit of light comes in, you might be down the street and you might be in a position where, I can't really be feeling this right now. I'm doing something for work, or you're at a do or something like that. So, so sometimes you sort of got to hide that light away that's coming through a little bit. But, I think the more you can feel it, the less impact it has at the end there.
Yeah. So you mentioned that this point for you in 2020 was pivotal. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I got up off the floor, and so I only have one sibling, my sister. She's just over 2 years older than me, and she's been my best friend since I was probably like 15, I suppose, something like that, 14. So fought like cats and dogs before that, but once we got to 15, and our parents actually separated a year or so before that, and I think that brought us together. But we would always be in contact. We'd talk 2 or 3 times a week, every week, and then I just rang her up, and I don't know why I didn't think I'd ever want to move back to the hometown, and it's an amazing place where I grew up. I loved it. But I just said, I think I want to come home. And she's like, you should. So, and then COVID was on at the time. So once the borders opened up from Western Australia, South Australia, Victoria, just packed up the car, Stella, my dog, because we're over there for a competition, and we sort of went over there with the mindset we might stay over there because Hayley's sister lived over there. So we had a bit of support, but just a few things didn't really fall into place, and that's just life. Yeah. And then, then COVID happened, and then, so we come home, and my house was already being rented, so just moved back to Oberon on a trial, and then, Stella loved it. She loved having my sister and then her 3 boys, so she's got cousins that are really her brothers. If that makes sense now. So, and they're a little bit older than her, so it toughened her up a lot, actually, having 3 bigger brothers. So it's been really good for her. But moved back to Oberon, and it was probably the best thing I've ever done, to be honest. I sort of fell on my feet with everything when I got back, pretty much.
I wonder, and again, some may have had this experience where you don't know quite where to place yourself for some time after you lose your person. But driving back into your hometown, did you feel different? Did you feel sort of a release or just a feeling, settled or something? Was there a shift?
No, I felt safe, to be honest.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was sort of on my own there 4 years. So it was, I was just so relieved to be going back to my sister and just having that, that pillar of support.
So coming home obviously made all that difference. Now, since Hayley died, you've done a lot of self-development. What does that journey involve? What does that look like for you? And how do you use all of that knowledge now?
Yeah, so it started like I was always sort of pretty smart at school, but very easily distracted. The class clown, I think, would be the best description of what I become once I got to high school. But yeah, during COVID in WA, I started my certificate 3 and 4 in fitness. So I trained like personal training, if you like, and then didn't use it like commercially or anything like that. I was still shearing, and then when I was competing, I was using a lady, Jen Hart, for sports psychology, and she used to use positive psychology and NLP, hypnosis and stuff with me. And then when I come back from Western Australia, I was moving some stuff out of my house to move back to Oberon, and I just went out and seen her, and I just had this massive download to her. And then she asked me what I was up to, and I said, I think I'm going to try and step back from shearing and use this, this certificate in fitness, and I'd like to start training shearers and farmers and things like that. So she gave me a phone number for the fella that she done all her training under, by the name of Arthur Bablis. So I started to sign up for a course. It was like a 7-day course for positive psychology and NLP. So yeah, that's how all that started. Fell down the rabbit warren of personal development through there. Ended up doing, so become a trainer in positive psychology and neuro-linguistic programming, done my hypnosis, kinesiology, and a few other little complementary therapies in there as well. And done my sports nutrition, become a branch of precision hydration with doing sweat tests and becoming a hydration specialist in that field as well. So sort of, I can be a little bit impulsive, but I just sort of jumped in with both feet, as I've been known to do. And that was pretty challenging, but I knew I had my sister to help me with everything. And that was really good too. I felt like, by moving forward, studying, I know that it was the right thing to do at the time, so I was quite motivated. And shearing's very long days, so I was trying to incorporate a lot of online stuff, so I didn't have to get Stella out of bed, take her to my sister's, get home late, because it's a tough gig. And that's for any single parent. My heart goes out to them. It's a hard run.
What can you take from positive psychology as a widow, and whether this is different at different stages of widowhood? But how can someone take what you've learned and apply it to their life when things frankly at times feel like they're spiraling out of control?
Yeah, I think so. What I did for myself personally, I wrote down all of Hayley's strengths, and you can come up with a lot of stuff. And I actually done quite a lot of, not journaling, but just writing, I guess, as well, when Hayley was sick. So, because I suffered a bit of insomnia, and if anyone's had that, they'll know what it's like. But yeah, so, you get wound. Sorry, I've jumped quite off topic here, but I'm just thinking, but it could be some good information
for sure
for someone. Yeah, so, if you can't sleep, whether any situation in life, but that was how it come to me, I would just write everything down in my head, and then I'd read it, and then I'd be like, oh, God, I can't believe that's going through my head. Like, what's going on? And then I'd generally burn it in our fire. But, so circling back, sorry for my little tangent there. But, I'd write down all her strengths, and then I would look at those strengths, and I would be like, yep, okay, well, I feel like I've incorporated a little bit more, whether it be resilience or organisation or housekeeping or something like that, you know what I mean? Like, I would say, okay, well, these are the strengths that I've incorporated from Hayley, and then I would make sure that I'm applying them out in the world where, well, I'm lucky I'm a trainer, so I come into contact with thousands of people a year. So, I'm always giving these little, lessons out, or I'm giving these strengths out to people. I'm trying to lift people up, to make them more resilient, the way that I incorporated them from Hayley.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So I take them on, and, I carry that, her resilience and, her fun-loving approach to, even the darkest times that you can face, to have a bit of humour and just to face it head on with a smile. Well, that's one of her biggest strengths. If you could put that into a word, that would be it.
It also means that you are bringing her with you in the things that you do,
Definitely, yeah. And then as I give them to other people, they give them to other people. So then off it goes.
She lives on.
It's eternity. It's infinity. It just keeps going.
And it sounds like to me you sort of harnessed what Hayley had been through and you as a family had been through in the holistic way that you took on her illness, your shearing and the fitness side and the mental fitness also that you need for the job that you had. It feels like this was sort of a confluence, like the universe has kind of brought it all together and that's what's driven you in that direction. Would that be right?
Yes, yeah, 100%, yeah. So it's definitely the influence of Hayley. I've always loved food, but yeah, like she was a very old school cook. Her Nana taught her to cook, but you know, I just love the buzz around food as well. Like I base a lot of it around my nutrition business as well. Like it's, I don't know, people don't sit around the tables and talk about medications, do they? They're always there and you're talking about food. You have a birthday party, you know, you have a wedding, it's all about the food, isn't it?
So true. It's the thing that connects us as well.
Yeah, and then my competitive nature as well, and then having the opportunity to compete on the level that I did also give me, you know, fill my toolbox up to be able to help people of all levels as well, everything from the novice, you know, foundational, all the way up to advanced with the shearers as well, with the shearer training. So once I'd done the courses, I stepped back from shearing and then I got offered a role with Australian Wool Innovation as a trainer, a shearer trainer, which I look back now, I wish I would have done 10 or 15 years ago because I learnt so much about the craft. I learned it once to do it my way, but then I learned it twice, the second time to learn how to teach it. And now I feel I have a much better understanding of it all. Where I thought once before that I knew what I was talking about, knew what I was doing, but it turned out I only knew bugger all.
What does your day or week look like these days now that you have created this new direction for yourself?
Yeah, so I definitely have a lot more time at home, which is good. And I've been very lucky. I've found an amazing woman. And again, the universe has provided that, you know, I met someone and she's an amazing human. And so now we've recently moved in together. So yeah, we got a blended family in the house, which is really good. And my partner Wendy, yeah, she's an absolute beautiful human. She's very loving and nurturing, and she's a good cook too, which is an amazing cook. So that's really good as well. But no, she's a beautiful human, and she's taken on the role with Stella as well. And her and Stella get along excellent, and she's really good with behaviour and stuff like that as well. So because it's a bit hard as a lot of widows know, if you're the good cop and the bad cop, that it's. Well, I find it hard anyway for that behavioural stuff. So it's good to have, you know, someone. Well, Wendy's got 4 children, so yeah, it's been good to have that as well.
Thank you for sharing about Wendy. It's such a big thing, isn't it? Jumping back into dating and trying to meet someone, and what does that look like? How do I do it? Can you give us a bit of a sneak peek of how that looked for you, Josh, when you were ready?
Yeah, so I met Wendy, 8 years after Hayley passed. So if I go back to when Hayley did pass, 2017, I was celibate for probably nearly 2 years, I suppose, 18 months, something like that. Like I just said to myself, like I'm not even concerned or anything like that for the next 12 months. And then, that 12 months turned into nearly 2 years. So I did, and then and then I did meet someone just through a dating app in New Zealand when we were semi-living over there, and that was really good. And she was probably a really good reintroduction. She was a real nice, caring human, but she didn't have any kids either, and she didn't want to settle down and play that role, which I'm thankful that she was honest about it. But it sort of took me back a little bit, and then I was sort of a bit hesitant, I guess, going forward, because you meet someone, you think, oh yeah, no, she's pretty amazing, but then my life didn't fall into that. Yeah. So that was a bit of a kick in the guts, but it is what it is. It's life. Like I was just appreciative that she was honest about it. And then so that was like whatever year that was, but but then getting into dating apps and just going on dates, because there's a lot of opportunity with the dating apps, and I think that I learned a lot about people too, I guess. Like I think the easiest way to say it is that knowing what you don't want is just as important as knowing what you do want. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I probably put too much time into another relationship, and that sort of just turned me off it a little bit, to be honest. And then I just sort of went single, I think. But yeah, you just get circling back to being in that relationship too long, persevering with in a relationship was probably against my values a little bit with some of her values, and that's just human nature, I guess. But I think, once you know what you don't want, I think that's really important.
I guess that can transfer through to life though, isn't it? Once you know what
Definitely.
you don't want, Do you apply that in your world?
Knowing what I don't want, definitely, I think as you get older, I'm 41 now. I think, you get very, if it's not down your alley, well, then you don't have to worry about it,
Yeah.
You can just turn a blind eye to it, or just let people do their own thing.
And Josh, the huge focus that you obviously have now on health and wellness, you wouldn't underestimate the importance of that in a widow's journey also. What small things can someone do when it comes to their health, when it comes to being as well as they can be, that might be small lifestyle changes that they can do to help themselves?
Yeah, and I think the first one, once upon a time I would say nutrition and fitness and stuff, but as time's gone on and I've been training more and more people, I think sleep is probably one of the biggest things. It seems very easy, but I don't think people are ever overworked. They're just underrested. I think a good sleep pattern is the foundation to be able to, to eat healthy, because there's a good rule with your nutrition that if you can eat 80% out of the ground and 20% not, I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. I think instead of trying to incorporate lots of new foods, I would go for taking the route of deleting foods out of your diet, if that makes sense. Yeah. So stick to the things you do like, and then sort of delete the ones that aren't no good. So all the stuff out of the packets, generally, if it's got more than 5 ingredients, don't buy it as a rule. Yeah, and just whole foods. Like I look at, think about the food as a journey, really. Like if you think about an apple tree, so it starts off in the soil, and then it'll get moisture, it'll come down, it'll germinate through the soil and all the nutrients in the soil. And then as this little seed grows up, shoots up into the sky, it reaches for the sun, and then all that sun comes down, hits that plant. So it's photosynthesis, turns it in, all that solar energy turns into chemical energy, grows into the tree, into the fruit. So when you bite into the fruit, you're actually biting into solar energy. So take a moment to enjoy your food and think about it. I do. I love it. It's the same as with meat too. Like I was brought up on farms, so whether it's lamb or beef or pork or chicken or anything like that, it's the same deal. Like you're eating solar energy, really, because they're eating the grass. The sun's on them all the time. It's a gift from the earth, isn't it?
It's a beautiful way to think about it.
And then just with water as well, I think water is super important. So you should be drinking 1 litre per 25 kilos of body weight. So
that old, sort of 2 litres a day, but actually think about who you are and kind of what you are and
yeah, depending on your shape, size.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, okay. For sure.
Some really great tips there and things that are easy to implement. I think that's the hardest part when you have so much going on. It's small changes, but they are things that you can do.
Yeah,
really
and leveraging things like technology now, like AI and things like that. You can get on. Well, I was a big Pinterest person when Hayley got sick, so the AI wasn't quite as strong then, but you can just put in one-pan meals, things like that, and next thing you know, you've got yourself, a couple of new recipes for the week, cook them all in one pan, learn how to make nice sauces, just to complement, food. Save just throwing a heap of sauce on it, like tomato sauce or barbecue sauce, buy some nice salt, some nice rubs, you can make... Like whole foods can be a little bit bland sometimes if you've got to eat, just meat and veggies and things like that. But you can make them a lot tastier dish.
I see a Josh's recipe book in your future.
Oh no, I've definitely already come up with a recipe book, but it costs a lot to get a recipe book out.
Does it?
To be honest, there's not that much money in it, I don't think, to be honest.
Okay,
not
scrap
for
that
the outlay.
idea. Scrap that idea.
But it's a good idea. I'm not going to talk about it just in case it comes out and someone gets my ideas. So
you heard it here first.
Yeah, that's right. So I've learned to keep my cards close to my chest.
Josh, I'd like to just talk a little bit more about Stella and parenting Stella. You mentioned before that Hayley is very much part of your conversations. She's part of who both of you are. How do you honour her memory with Stella? So and what have you learnt through that solo parenting with a parent that is still here but just not physically here?
I think a mate of mine said something to me once. He's a very wise man, and I was talking to him about Stella. Like, as I mentioned before, that she was, she'd just be sitting down and she'd start sort of lightly crying and would be missing her mum. But well, he said you just got to let life flow through them the way they choose. So and as they process different, she's got to be able to feel what she feels. So, but we do birthdays. Like every year we always get dressed up, and it's in January, so it's a nice time of year. We always have a feed outside and light a few candles and do balloons, because she's 10, so she's still very on that play level of living. So yeah, we light candles, like Mother's Day, which was not that long ago really. So, we light candles, and we always make sure that we celebrate that with her as well.
And you mentioned Wendy, who obviously has a great connection with Stella, as you've said. How does Hayley play a role in that new dynamic?
Well, I think as she's been in a grieving situation as well, I think because she's lost two of her brothers, I think she can relate to loss. I think she can relate, and just her beautiful nature. She's very loving, and she's what I would call an old school woman, if that makes sense. Yep. More traditional values and things like that, and that sort of suits our lifestyle as well, and how we live and how our values and morals are as well. So, but it's there's been some questions like can I call you mum and things like that. So it's really blooming, to be honest. And like last night, for example, we went to some nighttime football, and Wendy's from a big family. She's one of 8, so we're very lucky. She's got a lot of little cousins now, Stella, that are around her age, and one come and stayed last night, and we went to the footy, and then he's, just kids. They're like, oh, so who's her mum? And then where once upon a time Stella would just go, oh, my mum died. Where last night, she didn't. She was just like, well, Wendy's my mum.
Wow.
So she's gone on another level now, which I think is really good for her. And we always talk about Hayley. It's not as if she's not there, but Stella's, she's always, it would be hard for her. It's like, you tell her how amazing her mother is and what kind of incredible person she was, and she's this and she's that, and then all of a sudden it just falls on her that she'll never get to meet her again, Yeah. Like it's sort of a sleight of hands for her a little bit, if that makes sense. So now that she's got this beautiful Wendy to be able to fall back on, well, she's reaching out, which I think is quite healthy. Not that I'm a child psychologist, but for Stella to be able to go towards Wendy for that is a real blessing in my situation.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful place to be for all of you. Josh, what do you hope that Stella sees in you and also carries forward from her mum, from Hayley?
What does she see in me? I would like to think my humour, and we have a quote that we live by. Me and my daughter, we always have, and it'll continue on. It's like, you don't stop when you're tired, you stop when you're done.
Nice.
Yeah. And then also Hayley had a couple of little tattoos on her body, but she had one on her arm that said, every ending has a new beginning as well. So
wow, that's quite poignant really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I think just I just know Stella, she's very open. I'm looking towards the teenage years as well, building up my foundation.
Yes, good luck with that.
Of love and trust. We're very, very close. And with Wendy by my side, I know that it won't be too much of a hassle. I think it's just how we approach it. And there's always going to be little bushfires to put out, I think. But
yeah.
I hope that she's, just resilient, courageous, and just always honest and trustworthy. That's all I can ask.
What message do you want other widowed parents, especially men, to hear from your story?
I think it's okay. It's okay to feel it. You know what I mean? Like I was saying, like in those little doses. And it doesn't make you a weaker man or woman by any means to have a moment, whether it's, you just want to go and sit and be quiet, or go for a drive, or go somewhere, go to an event, like event by yourself, or go for yourself for dinner, or go and have a cry. Like, it just means that, you had skin in the game. If you don't feel it, well then you didn't really have skin in the game, did you? But everyone's going to feel it differently too. Like you will go numb at the start. I think, I've had times where I was a little bit numb but, and confused. But that's why I was very lucky that Hayley, we had that verbal agreement that this is how it was going to go. So, and the easiest thing in life to do is to follow an instruction, really. It doesn't get much easier. I do tell Stella that.
It's very, very true. Josh, I like to end each of these chats with 3 questions. We've answered a couple of these questions already, but I will ask you again. Firstly, what do you like to do to remember Hayley? And obviously she comes through in so much of your day and your work and your raising of Stella. But is there, sort of anything that you particularly like to do just to mark her?
Yeah, every time I see Hayley and her, I tell her.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Every time, yeah. And we always have a birthday and, little things like that, like, and a favourite colour and different things and, Yeah. So, yeah, I just always remind her.
And what's something that you would say to someone who's newly widowed? You may have had to have these conversations already, certainly being at camp, but, what's your advice?
Yeah, I think it's important, just to feel it. Like, you can't get around it. Like, you can't avoid it. Like, I distracted myself for those 2 years, and I distracted myself very heavily with competition. And I would definitely say you've just got to, it's okay to feel it. Like, it's, you're very lucky to have loved and lost and never love at all. Like, to grieve can be also a gift, to have that opportunity to love someone that much. Yeah, and I think one of the hardest things for me when I did lose Hayley was losing someone that loved me that much. And that might sound selfish, but that was one thing that I sort of worked out in one of my little moments that I was having. But it's okay. Yeah. It's okay to feel it.
Thank you. And finally, you've mentioned a couple of quotes already, but is there a quote that resonates with you most at this point in your life?
I honestly will just live my life by don't stop when you're tired, stop when you're done, to be honest. That's just something that just sticks in my brain, and it's like, well, you've just got to keep going.
It's a great quote. That's a beautiful place to finish. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us, telling us about Hayley and getting to know Stella and Wendy, who's new in your life. But thank you so much, Josh.
No worries at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all my guests for sharing their stories so generously. The Widow Diaries is hosted and produced by me, Caroline Winter from Pod Talk for First Light Widowed Support, which provides information, resources and connection for young widowed people throughout Australia. Follow or subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode, and you can also find out more information at firstlight.org.au. This podcast acknowledges and celebrates the traditional custodians of the land and waters on which stories have been told for thousands of years and on which this podcast is recorded.